And I hope it's all right with everybody. We wanted to record this because there's some people who couldn't attend today, and I would like to make it available to them. So I'm hoping that you're all right with this. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Liz, over to you.
Thanks, Leanne. Thank you to Leanne and to Geneviève for both inviting Saltese to come to Heritage. It's a pleasure for us to meet you, and at any point in time, because we're a small group, at any point in time, if you feel there's something that you want to discuss or to go into more deeply, you can put it into the chat, and we'll take a look at the chat later on. And if you have questions, we have a bit of a slight protocol that I believe everybody's pretty used to now. There's the hand raising tool that you have available to you. So you can use that if you're in the participants. If you go into that list, you can raise your hand to ask a question, and then there's the reactions if you wanted to also to flag something. But primarily, we're a small group, so let's keep this casual and as open as possible. So we've all been introduced. I'm going to go directly to sharing. I'm doing this more to keep me on track because I'm time challenged than to make this formal. But I'm going to share a presentation that we've created for you, and it's available to you also if you want to go to this link at any point in time. So it's a Google Doc, which is something that we use a lot. I think Google is probably the most ubiquitous tool that people are using now. But we use it a lot in order to keep our resources together. And in this case, we have an entire folder just for this workshop. So please feel free to, we can put that link into the chat so that if you want to use it, you like seeing things as you're hearing them, that's something that we can do. The two people who are working with me today, Sueli Bonafem, normally we call her Sue. Sue is a principal associate with Saltese. Chao Zhang has been with us as a research assistant, with me as a research assistant in the active learning and pedagogical change research that we've been doing for many years. And so they're both here to help facilitate the workshop and to help you with the breakout rooms. So here's what we're going to be doing today. A quick icebreaker. We're going to define what the problems are that you have. We're going to do a little bit of introduction of the CourseFlow, and then we're going to have you explore CourseFlow for the majority of the time. The way we're going to be doing it is we're calling it interactive breakout rooms. And the reason for that term interactive is that you're going to be working both alone and together inside of a breakout room. And it may be something that you're familiar with, or this will be the first time. But primarily what we want is to get you using the tool that we're talking about and using it in a way that makes sense for you, either alone or together with others. So we'll be exploring that and then leaving time for some questions, some Q&A, and then showing you what else you can do to think about developing stuff in an online environment. So to start, so this is a little interactive piece, and I want you to write write down the answers for yourself. So I'm going to ask you which of these statements best describes your understanding of learning. And on your own, write down, and we'll discuss after you write it down. So here are the options. So learning is 1, listening to a lecture or a video. 2, working together with others. 3, passing an exam or quiz. 4, constructing meaning by doing. 5, taking notes in class. All of the above, some of the above, or none of the above, something like another. So take 30 seconds and write down what you think the answer is. Okay, so I'm going to just pop out of the share for a second so I can see you all. So who wants to start? Who wants to tell me what they think learning is? Shall I call on someone? Richard, you've got a smiley face, so.
Yeah, that's just the way I was born, I think. No, well, for me, yeah, a lot of those things seem to be very mechanical in terms of learning. For me, my personal learning is to me, is discovery, putting together something new and understanding of the world, you know, pulling new information and synthesizing new things on my own. So the mechanical things like sitting through a lecture, writing an exam, that's not learning to me.
Okay. Who wants to counter that? Marie-Paul.
You decided to choose me as second. Well, I like the word, Richard, I like the word discovery. I said all of the above because to me they're all intertwined and are all part of learning. Obviously, my definition of learning is not in those words, but I think it encompasses, if I say all of the above, I think maybe there are a few things missing, but you asked me second and I haven't had a chance to put them down on paper yet. So maybe I'll come back.
Okay. Who wants to jump in? Otherwise, I'll call on you.
This is Mark. I'll jump in. I liked constructing meaning by doing. I agree with Richard. I think the listening to lectures and doing the exams are perhaps necessities, but I don't consider them too much of learning activities. But I agree with Richard as well. By doing, that's the way you really learn.
Okay, and so in fact, what you're saying to Richard is that there in fact was a description that fit his, because he said originally none, right? He said none of these. He thought it was another, and he framed it as discovery, and you call it constructing meaning by doing. So it's probably a little bit of semantic there, right? Just a slight semantic discovering it yourself or doing it and constructing meaning.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
more
like
or less the same.
Yeah, I mean, one of my hobbies is I really like sociology and economics, but I don't do economics, right? You know, like, or we don't do politics and things like that. But those interesting things to learn about. So it's just a discovery and synthesizing and playing around with the ideas in your head. So I think that's somewhere different from Mark. There's not a lot of doing. Some of those topics I can't do, economics, for example, right?
So that's interesting. So if you aren't doing, are you learning?
I think so.
How's that possible? If you can't do economics, but you've read about economics and you said that you're thinking about it,
Yeah, I could discuss it. I can formulate ideas. You know, it's expanding my understanding of the world around me, or putting a model to what used to be chaos or ignorance.
So isn't that a form of doing?
Could be. Yeah. I mean, to the outside world, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting there reading a book.
But you just explained that you were doing a lot inside your head.
Okay.
You know, so I guess that's why I'm saying it may be a semantic thing when we talk about, you know, what do we think about the doing? You know, so doing is partly what we're doing here, which is, you know, talking about stuff. But doing could also be just sitting there thinking about it. But I think Richard made a really, do you like Richard or a different? Richard is good? Okay, so Richard made a really important point though. When you're just sitting there thinking, you're thinking deeply, does anybody know you're learning? How do you know? How do we know that that's happening? Any clues?
I guess you can engage in discussion and probe.
So you just Alain, you just popped in. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to start, perhaps with regards to learning, it's about growth, about evolving, but also it's about validating. So you need to validate that learning in a way that it becomes useful to you, or it's truthful or not, or and also usable or not. So there needs to be a validating component.
Right. So that would be when we said passing an exam or a quiz. We could expand that to say, you know, having a conversation that's meaningful with somebody or something else. So it doesn't have to be a formal, you know, assessment. It can be, you know, so that's something we'll discuss a little bit about, you know, what does it mean to assess that learning and know that, sorry, can you guys hear the cleaning, the street cleaner here? No, good, okay. Yeah, they're cleaning the streets in front of my house, and it's pretty noisy suddenly. Give me one. Okay. So, yeah, so, you know, I think Alain's point is you need to be able to use that information, knowledge, and when it comes to knowing that you know, you have to validate it in some way. Someone has to be able to know that you know. And that's a really difficult thing. And that's where instruction comes along. So I'm gonna leap, sorry, somebody else wanted to say something? No, okay. So in other words, sort of wrapping up what the 3-4 comments have been so far. Yes, you can learn. Learning doesn't always have to be externally visible. You can be thinking inside of your own, in your own mind, but the teacher needs to know that you know, and you need to know that you know. Therefore, there has to be some externalization of learning, always. So that's an important thing to remember, because that's what teachers are always doing. We can't go inside people's heads. And nodding doesn't tell me that I learned anything. You know, that's one of the problems that teachers often get fooled by. Oh my God, I had the best class. Everybody was nodding. Well, no, they weren't really nodding. They, you know, they enjoyed what you did, but they weren't really nodding because they learned anything. They like you. You know, you're a nice person. You're enjoyable. You're entertaining. But how do I know that they learned? I need to see something that they can do. And I need to be able to hear them talk about what they're learning. Those are the things that we're trying to do when we build instruction. So I'm gonna, as I said, I'm gonna jump back to the slides. So bear with me as I jump back.
And Liz, there's a hand raised.
Oh, sorry.
Hussam?
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to answer the question of what I think learning is. And I think learning is basically acquiring a skill or knowledge that was not known to that person beforehand. So it's new knowledge or a new skill. And I agree with you and with Alain on the fact that it needs to be validated. So really the trick is to validate it and to come up with an approach of delivering that, of making that learning happen. So you gotta have a method of delivery, and then you have to have a method of evaluation and validation.
Right, and the validation sometimes is not just for the teacher, but it's also for the student themselves to know that they know. I mean, that's a really hard thing, is to know that you know something and know that you don't know something. Right. So yeah, your point is well made. So just to give you a sense of the kinds of knowledge that, just very briefly, I'm sure you've seen this. This is Bloom's taxonomy. Everybody talks about Bloom's taxonomy and the different forms of knowledge that you can be assessing. And I think I just stuck this in here just to remind people that, when Richard said he was synthesizing, that's pretty high level thinking. So just because you're sitting there just looking at me doesn't mean that you aren't taking in things and you're pretty much synthesizing. The problem is, though, is that we are not, as human beings, we're not really good at multitasking. We have a set skill set. Our ability to do things, multiple things, like listening to me, attending to all of the gadgets on your laptop or your whatever computer you're using, listening to the people in the background of your house, all of those things are taking up what we call cognitive load. So for you to synthesize while you're listening to me is pretty difficult. So that's really important to remember, is that when we're starting to do instruction, we're taking that into account, that what do people learn? How do people learn? What is the things that I want them to start processing? How do I want them to process that information that I'm providing them? And then what are the best ways of doing it? So I'm going to say, I'm not going to ask you to do another little reflection here, but I'm just going to run through this. So which of these statements best describes your understanding of instruction? So I'm just going to go through them. So instruction is activities to engage students, formative assessment to provide feedback, 1-minute paper, clickers, questions, those things that many of you have tried maybe. We'll talk about those if you want. Formative assessments, which assess the learning, and those are things like tests and exams. And then the consolidation activities that, do something. Show me that you can do it, not just to write about it. And then there's some sort of content presentation. So those are the things that most of you do. You probably create some activities to engage your students. You probably have some kind of way to see what they know. So a formative assessment. So, meaning I just want to see what you can do right now. I don't want to test you in the sense of evaluate you in terms of high level evaluation. That comes in when I summatively assess you. And then I have to prepare content, because clearly you're not learning this in the absence of having an objective. The objective is, your business course or your computer science or your English course. All of those things are possible. So the content is a mini lecture or a lecture demo or some kind of way of providing students with the content. So these are the kinds of things probably, and some of these might be more important than others. So what's difficult about designing this? I would say probably trying to figure out, what are you going to teach next week or each week? You know, how are you going to achieve the learning outcomes for these courses? You've all been provided with, you know, a set of competencies that your course is supposed to achieve, and those have elements of competency and learning outcomes that you're supposed to go for. And if you haven't been using those, you probably still have objectives. Like, why am I in this class? Why am I, you know, at the head of this class? You know, why did I walk into this classroom as the teacher? You know, that's basically, you know, what am I going to do here? How are you going to get your students to reach these outcomes? Is probably one of the things you're trying to figure out. How are you going to assess your students and know that they know? When should you have these assessments? What types of assessments? So all of those things are questions that you might be asking yourself. And so what we developed was this tool called CourseFlow. And CourseFlow is meant to help answer some of these challenges. And it has a certain amount of features. So the features that we're going to talk about is CourseFlow provides a clear visualization of your course plan, and it allows you to keep track of the weeks. So what am I teaching? What am I teaching this week? The learning outcomes. What do I have to teach? Why am I teaching it? The assessments, the assignments and the assessments. How do I know that my students know? And then the resources that I've brought together, the materials that I have for the course. So all of those things are provided a clear visualization in CourseFlow, and we'll show you each of these. The other thing that's nice about CourseFlow is it allows you to collaborate and share with your colleagues, which is one of the things that I think is probably really important given the circumstances we're in. We're in a time where we're all going online, or if you're not online, you're going to be in some sort of blended course. And what we're really concerned about is the amount of workload. So how do you lower the amount of stress and the amount of workload? Well, collaborating with others is a good way of doing it. So CourseFlow allows you to have a way of showing each other what you're doing. We call it dynamic nodes and components. It allows you to cut and paste information into it. So you and I can maybe work on a course together, a course outline together, and I can cut in my own content once we've decided, you know, what the flow looks like, and I can change it. And then the ability to link to pre-existing content is also an important thing. And we put in a link there to how to create with Moodle. So there's a little video that you can figure out how you might want to work with. So here's a link to a YouTube video. It's taking a while to load up, but if you wanted to, you already use Moodle and you want to be able to put your CourseFlow in, you can do this. Okay. So that is a nice little perk of having, you know, the work you've already done expanded. So, any questions? I'm going to stop for a second and see if anyone has any questions so far about some of the assumptions I've made about what it takes to do a course and how you feel about putting together courses. Anyone disagree with these are the things that you're concerned about? No? Okay. So we're going to move on to the actual, what does CourseFlow look like? So CourseFlow, ooh, did the wrong thing there, sorry. We need to get this. Everything's a little slow today for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Mark, you wanted to say something? Not sure if Mark wanted to say something. Okay.
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not sure why this, okay, so let me go back. So I'm just going to show you what to expect once we get into CourseFlow. So CourseFlow has a landing page, and the landing page starts off with giving you the 3 levels that CourseFlow can work in. But today we're only looking at the course level, so no need to explore the others right now unless you are feeling very, very comfortable with the first task that we give. CourseFlow, the other piece we're going to show you is how to enter learning objectives and how to enter the learning objectives and how to use them. The next one, this is what a fully loaded course looks like. And I'm not sure, I'm trying to give you, here we go. That's a little, as I said, everything feels a little slow today, a little sluggish, but this is what this is what a fully loaded course will look like. You've got these, this kind of map that looks like a flow chart, and it will show you the weeks, it will show you a lesson, it will show you different kinds of parts of what you might be planning. Maybe in the past you've used a spreadsheet to show you how you prepare or what you want your students to prepare for and what happens in the lesson and what kinds of assessments you have. All of those things are part of what CourseFlow allows you to show. And then very specific things, you'll see how your course objectives can be not only mapped out, but assigned to specific weeks. You can see that there's a nice little green bar around or halo around this week. But you also notice that there's another halo, green halo around this, and then another green halo around here, and another green halo around this quiz, which means that all of those have the same learning outcome. It means that it's like a validation, a check for yourself to know that I've covered a learning objective and I've given my students time and place to prepare for it, to experiment with it, and then to assess themselves or provide me with evidence that they know. So the quiz as a formative assessment of that. And then the last thing that I mentioned when I said what CourseFlow can do, it can also hold all the content. So this is an example of the content with a URL. Here, I can link to another object, another piece of information. So this is the lesson, my lesson for today or the lesson for that day. And then what I want my students to do, I link to that as well. So I can have another URL and show what I'm going to give my students. And that's what you're going to be seeing when you do this CourseFlow today. You're going to start with those, you're going to start by playing with some of those features that I just showed you. So how are we going to get started? So the things we're going to do in CourseFlow today in a live demonstration is under the basics, how to create a file and name it, how to add and move the nodes, those colorful boxes, we call them nodes, how to add description to the nodes so that text that it's inside the nodes, adding weeks to the course flow. So how do you add more nodes? And then how do you save a file? So those are the basic things. And in the breakout room, what I'd like for each of you to try is exactly that. So these basic features of CourseFlow are the things you're going to try today. When it comes to a more advanced, so also again today, we're going to do this if you feel comfortable. We're going to create some outcomes. So your learning outcomes, that's why you were asked to bring in a course outline. If you don't have a course outline, don't worry. We can use somebody else's course outline. You're going to assign the course, these outcomes, and tag them to some of the nodes. You're going to learn how to add some columns if you want to, and then you're going to learn how to add content and use the icons for the content. So that's the plan for today and what we're going to cover. And I'm going to go through these very, very quickly in the interactive part of this demonstration. So any questions? Okay. So here is a live demonstration now of CourseFlow. So this is what I just clicked on the link, as you saw, the link that I gave you at the bottom of that page. If I had an existing CourseFlow course, I would open it under project, but we're going to try a new one. So I go to new project and I click on that. I'm going to name my new project. I'm going to call it workshop. You would call it whatever your course is. When I click on OK, what shows up is the menu that I showed you that has those 3 levels. We are only working on the course level. So I go under the middle, which is the course, and I go create. I create the new course, and that new course is, I'm going to name it here, and I can insert the name either from here or from the menu bar on the side. So I'm going to call it exactly the same thing, Workshop Heritage. I can add my name, and as I mentioned, one of the nice things is that you can collaborate with others. So you can I'll put in my name and your name because we're both working on this. A description, what are we creating here? So whatever you want to say. So something like how to use CourseFlow is the description of what this CourseFlow will be. Every CourseFlow starts off with a default. There are 3 icons. Those 3 icons represent 3 columns. So it's almost like creating a spreadsheet. You have 3 columns and you can enter things into those 3 columns. What you need to do to start off, notice that there is a bar that says week 1. That bar is where you add the nodes. Nodes are found in this menu to the right, and under nodes it says preparation, lesson, artifact, assessment, and new custom. We're going to use the things that we already have. So lesson, I drag and drop into the gray space. What I've done by doing that is I've created a block for a lesson. So it now is, I open there, I click on the green, and suddenly things have changed and opened up new information on the menu bar. In the menu bar, I will call this lesson 1. You can call it whatever you want. It's your lesson. I'm going to put in a description. So it's going to be introduce
Liz?
the component. Yes?
Can I interrupt you? Can you just make it like full screen? Maximize your window, please?
Is that better?
No, not really.
Oh, make it bigger. You mean make it bigger?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
There you go. Way better.
I work I work on this tiny little screen. Sorry. So stop me whenever if it wasn't clear to you because you couldn't see it. So when I click onto the node, I'll go out again. Notice when I click onto the node, the menu changes and I now can start, it gives me different options. It says title, so I put the title as week 1. I'm not going to use any of these, the contacts and the task icon for the moment. I'm just going to go directly to the description. So add whatever description you want in there. Introduce the components of CourseFlow is my first lesson for the day, and how much time this will take. A normal course, you have, it's a 90-minute course. We don't really use 90 minutes. No one uses 90 minutes of the course. It's usually something like 80 minutes. So I can put the time, how much time am I going to have in that course, in that one lesson. I can then add another, let's say the next time we meet, so I'm going to drag this down. I'm making the assumption here that time and weeks go in a vertical fashion. So the next time I meet my students, I'm going to drag another lesson. So green is for lessons. The blue boxes, the blue nodes are for preparation. So I want my students to read ahead of time. So read. And I can describe what I want them to read. And then in the next lesson, I add lesson 2 and I tell them, what are they going to do this time? So this is how you add notes. This is how you put content into notes. And because you can actually put links into notes, you can go searching for a link. So you can go searching to say, where do I have where do I have something that I want to add into this node? Something like maybe something that you have some readings that are online. So it has an HTML link, something that you have a website that you like and you want them to go to, so you can add that link. Any of those things can be links, and I'll show you one that is complete. This is, I'm going to stop here and say, this is what I want you each to experiment with, is how to open up, how to name, how to use these nodes, and you can experiment by dragging more of them in. So when I drag an assessment, notice that the assessment is always red, the pre-class is always blue, and the lesson itself, the class time, is green. Those are the things that I want you to experiment with. You can also link things to show the logic of the connection. So notice that every time, I'm going to remove it and redo this. If I look at one of these nodes and I go to the little white circle, the little white circle shows a green box when I'm hovering directly over it. When I click on it, so I've now clicked on it, what will happen is that an arrow is generated. That arrow can link me to another box that I connect to, again, to the green, that very bright green box. So if I'm not on it, it doesn't show up the little green box that will allow me to release and connect. When I do hover over the right place, notice that everything lights up and I now have the way of connecting. If you don't want that link, if you change your mind, you can remove it with the X. Anytime you hover over the box, those white circles, wherever there's a white circle, if you go to the white circle, the green will show up. and you can find another green onto another node, and it will light up, and it tells you if you let go, it will link to that box. What this is letting you do is to show the connection, like a flow chart. It means that if I were to connect these two together, it means that lesson 1 is related to lesson 2, and it's just a logic of what's connected to what. My pre-reading for lesson 2, I can do the same thing. I can say this pre-reading is directly related to the lesson 2. I could link it to the node down here. I can link it to the node here. I can link it to the node wherever there's a node. Some of them are less meaningful. That's sort of a silly way of linking. But it's up to you if you want to link it in this fashion or link it from here to here. Those are up to you. It doesn't make a difference how you see it. It's just whatever is logical. So I'm going to stop and allow you to look at this and decide what questions you might have before we go into a breakout room. So, was everything relatively clear?
Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had sort of a big picture question, and apologize if Saltese has already made this clear. Is this software intended to be something that would eventually be shared with students so they would have a visual of their overall course? Or is it more of a brainstorming area for teachers as we're planning and developing and creating our courses?
It's both. I'll show you, for instance, how we think that it might be an interesting way of sharing with students. So the primary reason for developing it was for teachers to work together and to do exactly what you suggested, which is, how do you brainstorm with another person? How do you, share with another person? So I'm just trying to get back to, I'll show you what I did. And this is something that would be an example of how you might share it with your students. So this is my Moodle course. So I have a Moodle course, and in my Moodle course, this is the little video that I clipped, that I clicked on. It shows you how to add to your Moodle course a course flow. And in this particular case, this course flow would not be editable. So if I'm sharing this with you as my colleague, I want you to be able to edit. But as a student, you could click on the course flow and you could see, so this is a course flow that I prepared ahead of time as a demo for this workshop. So I entered it into my Moodle course, and if you were to be a student in this Moodle course, you would be able to see, what am I doing in week 1? Oh, she has a lesson 1 and the day is there. In this lesson, here is what she's planning on doing. Here's the document she linked and she wants me to work on. So the example would be, please read this before you start working in the breakout rooms. Okay, that's what we're doing in lesson 1. Okay, and now she has a reading she expects me to work on. So please read this chapter before coming to your next class. So I would click here and I would find that, document that my teacher prepared ahead of time. So it's almost like having a mini learning management system, but it's all in a very linear, sorry, let me go back to my Moodle course. It's inside my Moodle course, and I can as a teacher, what I would do is probably not put the entire course in. I would upload or refresh as I went along. So I would have week 1 so that they know what they're doing in week 1. And then I would release week 2 probably, or depends on, you know, you as a teacher, whatever you think makes sense to you. So in this case, if you were my students, you would go to my course in Moodle. You would look at my first week. So here's my first course in Moodle. I would look, you'd open up my first week, and in my first week, you would see this interactive course outline. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I was seeing it, as an interactive course outline, which is really neat for the students to be able to click and follow along that way.
Yeah, and you, as I'm showing you, you can insert as many links, hyperlinks as you want, and you know, and slowly right now you have to re-upload for it to for your students to, if you like you can't just refresh. But no, I'm not going to confuse you with that small detail. It's a small detail, and more than happy to show you that once you're feeling comfortable with CourseFlow. So are we ready to try out the breakout rooms and CourseFlow? Does anybody have any major, so Chow and Sue are going to be with you in the, I'm going to pop in to the rooms. I don't know, we have an even number of people in each room?
Yes, 5.
Okay, so so Sue will put you into the breakout rooms, and we'll start experimenting.
I just need a minute because we assigned each of you based on your background, so you can. 1 second.
At any point in time, if you feel that you want to talk to any of us, just send a chat. If you feel that you're, after the very first, we're going to do, so just to tell you very, again, very, very succinctly, if you use the link that I put into the chat, I explained that link sends you to the slideshow that we put together. We're now on slide, the breakout room, so we're on slide 15. And the breakout room, the objective here is to do a very quick and dirty 3-week course schedule, taking no more than 5 minutes just to explore this. It probably, those of you who are, who feel comfortable, you probably will be whizzing through this way before 5 minutes, but we're gonna, you can come back, and I'm asking you all not to leave the breakout room. So you're doing this alone on your own desktop. You're not sharing with anyone, but you're in the same breakout room. So you can always put your, ask a question to Sue or Chow. Once we have a sense of how comfortable you are with using the CourseFlow, we're going to move on to the second part of the activity, which is to add learning outcomes. If you are very comfortable, we're going to go straight there. If you're not comfortable, we're going to make a small subsection of that breakout, and we're going to put people who want to have a slowed down version of how to use CourseFlow together. Okay, so this is customizing it to your needs.
Okay.
So
just before you go, Liz, I'm not sure if you can pop into the other breakout room, so you let me know. You can send me a text message when you want me to assign to another one. Okay, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms now.
You might have to make me the host for this part, so I can pop in and out. I can't hear you.
Can you see the invitation to go to the breakout room too?
No. But
Well,
if you make me the host, I can go to. Oh, sorry. I had to go join. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. Participants. Make the host. Now you'll have to assign me to room number 2.
Okay. Sorry. Assign to number 2. Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Liz.
So the other group, I just closed the room for them as well. So they'll be back in a few minutes. How did everything go in your breakout room?
I think you're doing pretty well.
Fantastic. Okay, so when they come back, what I will ask them to do is to, for all of us to report on the experience and, oh, it's just counting down. Sorry, I thought it would close immediately. When they come back, they're not as advanced as you are. So maybe you're going to show them some of the things that you were asking questions about, like being able to see all of these, you know, to see that other view. Okay, so everybody is back. So how about we have a quick reporting from the first group. So Chow's group, do you guys have any questions about what you did, or you want to show anybody what you did? And then group 2 will tell you what they did. They're a little advanced because as I mentioned, they had a ringer. Mark was able to probably give them a bit of a heads up, and because he's been working on CourseFlow for a bit. So what we're going to do in this last little section is just to get a sense of where everybody's at. But I want you to see how to use the other view of that validation to check on your learning outcomes. And then maybe if we still have time to show you how you might consider using CourseFlow for your online course. Okay, so Chow's group, anybody from that group want to report something? Like what was the biggest, like, oh my God, the hardest thing that I didn't understand? Or what was the biggest thing that I think I can use this for?
I think the biggest success for me was learning that the columns and attaching them. So what I did, I won't bother showing you, but I had my assignment from week 1 connected to my assignment in week 2, but they were both also connected to an artifact, which I was saying the connection to the major research essay at the end of the semester. So I could use that 4th column of artifacts to explain how every smaller assignment was connected, at least in some way. You're learning some skill or practicing some skill that's going to help you for the huge assignment that's due 30% at the end of this semester. So I love that idea of how it would build week by week, and they would think, why is he making me do this work in week 2? Instead, they can have that direct visual of, I'm doing this so that I can learn how to do this, and that's going to make my final assignment easier so it won't be stressful at the end. I really, really like that. It's such a neat way to look at how your course is building all the way through.
Nice, I'm glad. Anybody else from Chow's group?
I was just thinking it will, I'm wrapping my brain around, we could even use it for collaborations with the content specialists that we hire in Cont Ed in terms of program revisions and a bigger picture planning as well. And then it's a place where we can both go to collaborate. So I'm thinking of other uses for it as well.
Nice, nice. And yeah, it could be mentoring between a more senior faculty member and a junior one. Or, you know, if any of you have the experience, you know, you can raise your hands. How about those teachers that you tell them that they're teaching a course the day after the course began? I'm sure many of you have had that experience. If you haven't had it happen to you yourself, you probably have had happen to, you know, colleagues where they were told they're teaching a course and they know, and it's like, oh my God, how am I going to get myself ready in, you know, a minus one day? You know, so those kinds of things, you know, maybe somebody who has a lot of experience could have, you know, a course flow, and that you just use that and you can adapt it because you can just swap out, you know, like, oh, I like doing it I like doing things this week. So you just move the note up rather than have it in week 3. I want it in week 2. So you don't have to recreate anything. You just swap it around.
Yeah, it's a nice play. Like we use course plans, but it's hard copy or PDF versions or whatever. So this is a much more interactive use of it. And I appreciate what you say in terms of last minute, because I just had an email pop up in the corner that I'm a little nervous about. I'm hoping a teacher hasn't letting me know that she's not returning.
I feel also being more of a new teacher and just being told, here's your course, and not really understanding also the college system, to have somebody actually show how everything kind of flows and what they did, because oftentimes I was asking, I don't really understand how you got from here to there, whether it's an assessment or it's a lesson, and because it's not really implicit in what they've actually done, because they're just giving you all of maybe the structure of what they did. So yeah, I could see how that would be really handy.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd like to add, sorry if I can, some teachers are new to competency-based education. So having that link, clear definition link between the lessons and the elements of the competency and the performance criteria, I think is a particularly useful tool. Even for some teachers who are more seasoned, they may have gone into ways of doing things, but create that link is important, I think.
Great, happy to hear that. Okay, so let's move to group 2, Sue's group, and maybe show us or tell us what was the big things that you learned, and if there's anything that you're really having difficulty with. And then maybe, Mark, you can show us your, you know, that view that I didn't show, we didn't show group 1.
Go ahead, Richard.
Well, one thing I learned that I thought was really nice is how customizable it was. At first, I didn't realize all the columns are totally configurable. You can sort them left to right, so you can put in any sequence you want. And I didn't know what the definition of artifact was. Was that a student artifact or was that a teacher artifact? And in the end, I ended up creating 2 separate columns, one for students versus teacher created artifacts.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was really nice. So its configurability was great. And then just to echo what Alain said, I really do like the traceability of the outcomes. You know, pulling that grid up to see, where the outcomes were evaluated along the way. That's really great, right? Because before we just had to, I just mentally keep track of it. And it's nice to visually see it all as well, to see how everything ties together. As Selena says, the old PDFs, they're not as nice as the graphical view.
So no, thanks, Richard. Mark, maybe you can share your screen and show them so everyone sees the learning outcomes and how you can see. By the way, you all should know the P and the C can change for the CEGEP level. So Mark, if you go to view, under the terminology, it says CEGEP. So when you change it to CEGEP, all of those, notice that the P changed to a CY, which is competency, and instead of a P. So it changes to competency, and then it changes to element of competency, I believe, and then to learning outcome. So learning outcome doesn't change, but the competency and the element of competency. So it's completely in your language. So CY, EC, element of competency. Or Elizabeth Charles, if you want to pretend that.
Drag and drop too, neat. I didn't try that before.
Oh, didn't, oh, okay. I didn't know you didn't know.
So yeah, so then as you can see, I've assigned some of the outcomes to assessments as well as labs.
So Mark, I can see that you have some learning outcomes there. So open up that first one. See the arrow? Go down 1, 2, 3 boxes. There you go. There's a little arrow on the side. Turn it. There you go. Now you see your learning outcome. So you can assign the learning outcome, or you can assign the entire box. So I would say, I would use the smallest unit that I want, because that way you're sure that lesson 1 covers just that learning outcome as the one that you really want. If you haven't created, so element of competency is quite high level. Learning outcome is small enough to cover in one lesson. So one lesson, you cover that one, and then you could have the average learning outcome for an element of competency is probably 3. Sometimes there's a lot, but let's say there are 3. So I cover 1 learning outcome, 2 learning outcomes, maybe in one lesson, but in one assessment, I want all 3 of those. And if you do that, did you ever see when a check mark is created? Because are you noticing the little dots on the side?
Yeah, I see that.
Every time you assign, yeah. So that's telling you. So now take one of those, take your learning outcome, the LO,
okay,
and drag it to a preparation. There you go.
Now I got all 3 colored dots.
Yeah, but take the element of competency now. Maybe it's because you started off with element of competence. Drag it to the box as well. Drag it to the.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get you to get a check mark. What happens is when all 3 levels, a preparation, a lesson, and an assessment, have been tagged with a learning outcome, it will change to a check. Instead of those 3 little dots, it will change to a check mark saying, you've done it. You have prepared your students with this learning out, to understand this learning outcome. You have given them a lesson. I think that's part of the problem is you don't have a lesson. Okay, so grab it to the lesson. There you go, check mark. You've done all 3. Now it means that you prepared your students, you have given them an experience, and you have given them an opportunity for them to know if they know it. So you've assessed them. So you've done 3 things that are what we imagine is the best way of ensuring learning will happen.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So if you go to the outcome view, show them what it looks like. This is what you were, there you go. See, all your labs are showing up now.
Yeah,
so
that's because of this display options down here. I had just clicked assessments before.
Okay.
So show them, I didn't have preparation and lesson checked before, so I shut those off. But now that I've got some associated with them, I'll turn them back on again.
So what this shows, so just stop there for a sec, Mark.
Yeah.
So what this shows you is that, like an Excel spreadsheet, some of you don't like, AKA Adam, you can take a look very quickly. You weren't creating a spreadsheet. You weren't working in a spreadsheet, but a spreadsheet is created for you. And you can download this as a CSV file, I believe. Because what it's telling me is that now I can, if my department chair wants to know if I'm doing a good job, for instance, I can show them. I've prepared my students by giving them this element of competency as the reading. I have covered this information in a lesson, and the lesson may have an activity or not. That could just be lecturing. Nobody says that you have to engage students in doing, but if you do, that's great. And then I assess them. I give them some sort of formative assessment, letting them know that they know and letting me know that they should know. So this tells me when I've given them, what I've given them, not the when necessarily, but I've given them these competencies, these element of competencies, these learning objectives. I've covered them, I haven't covered them. The ones that have an empty circle means that I haven't closed the loop completely. I've made it clear that this is happening, but I haven't done anything in that, so on and so forth. You'll learn to read this spreadsheet. But this is how you use that view, that outcome view.
Cool.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Is it fair for me to make the link between once he got the check marks, in this view it had a check mark, but prior to that it might have been a red and a yellow or blue, like it would have been colored, or there's no check mark at all?
There would be no check mark unless he assigned an outcome. So he has to say, you know, that learning outcome has to be assigned as soon as he puts it onto one of those nodes. It will give you a check mark in this view.
So prior to him getting the check mark, what would we have seen?
It would be blank.
Yeah, it's just blank. I just checked, Selena. It's just blank. There's nothing there until you make the link between all 3 steps.
Thank you.
And knowing that, you know, we've been developing this tool, so it's a tool that keeps on expanding the capabilities. So if there's something that you feel, oh, I wish it did this, this is where you tell us, and you know, we'll add it. So for instance, when we were in the breakout room, I believe Selena was the person, because she mentioned a date. She said, well, you know, like I can just choose something, you know, like, so it's a link to the calendar, and it was like, oh my God, that would be really cool. Maybe we can link it, no, maybe we can have a calendar built in so that when you assign week 1, it might actually know that week 1 is August 24th, as opposed to Dawson College's week 1 is September or something. You know, I'm not telling you that's real, but don't quote me that Dawson's not starting until September.
If I may add, Selena actually has another brilliant idea for showing the outcome. Selena, do you want to give your comment?
Well, I was just curious because instead of all of us typing in the competencies and the elements that go with it, since it's most of is ministry driven, could it just be a database that we could draw upon?
Ooh, interesting. Yes.
That becomes
definitely
a protocol. I see that's very.
We probably could do that in the in the next version, not this sort of standalone version, you know, but let's put that in as a possibility. We'll figure it out. In the meantime, the simple way of doing it would be, you know, if you had a Word document with your course outline and all of these, we can quickly, you know, create a bank of these for each department, for instance, and for, you know, the main courses. And so you don't have to do it yourself. You just copy, paste, and drop them in. We could even have a pre-populated course flow. You know, we could say for English, where you have many, many teachers teaching the same course, you could create, you know, English 101. I don't know what the numbers are, the real numbers, but you could do that. And then the, you know, the educational counselors, you could have, like, you know, the 10 most popular courses. You know, here's a course flow for, you know, with not the flow, but just the blank with the course outcomes ready for any teacher who wants to use CourseFlow. Richard?
Yeah, just trying to understand what's the criteria to get that big check mark that Mark was doing as he was assigning the same learning outcome to each column. Does it have to exist in all the columns, or is it hard coded to you must exist in 3 specific different columns, or is it summative versus formative versus assessment?
So Sue, I don't know if you, I believe it is the, it should be in the preparation, the lesson, and an assessment for it to have a check mark.
And for sure the assessment, yes.
Okay.
But I guess you're, so Sue is saying, if you only have it in the assessment, I think you'll get a check mark in the workflow view, in the, maybe somebody can check that out.
I don't think you wouldn't.
Okay.
The reason why I ask is if I have custom columns, maybe different types of assessments, then would it still trigger off the check mark indicating that I've had sufficient coverage?
I don't know the answer to that question. Let me,
let's experiment.
We can find out for you. We can find out that answer for you pretty quickly. So let me just share very quickly. I'll show you what, so we're almost at time, by the way. If everybody's okay with a couple of minutes over, here's what I have, what I've done with the demo version. So this one learning outcome I've assigned to all 3 levels: the preparation, the lesson, and the assessment. This one I've only, as learning outcome 1, I've only assigned it to the lesson and to the assessment. And then I have learning outcome 3, I haven't assigned it at all. So when I go into outcome view, notice what happens. The learning outcome 3 has a red mark, but learning outcome 2 that has all 3 levels has, let me go in here and do what Richard, what Mark did as well. So you can see that learning outcome 2 was was assigned to the reading, the lesson, and to the assessment, and therefore it has a total of check mark for everything. Learning outcome 1 was only assigned to the lesson. Well, it was assigned to 2 lessons, but it was also, to 1 lesson and to an assessment. Therefore, it has a check mark. So if I only do it, let's go back. If I take the experiment now and I'm opening up my learning outcomes, I take the 3rd one and assign it to that assessment, it should now be a check mark. So it says, so as long as the learning outcome has been assigned to an assessment, it will show you a check mark. If it's been assigned to other things, so to answer your question, Richard, if you had assigned it to a column that you created, it would have shown up here saying it was assigned. But until you assess it, it doesn't show up as checked off here. So does that sort of answer the question for everyone?
That answers my question.
Okay. So just so that, so we're at the 3 o'clock mark, noting that we did add a couple of bits here for you. So for those of you who want to see a demo course that's really low level, just in case you want to show other people, you can go to the link here. If you want to see a couple of examples of what an asynchronous course might look like, we've put in a couple of those that were created by, these are sort of templates that you could use. So you're more than welcome to take this and try it out. We also have teachers who have done their courses, and this would be an example of an asynchronous course. So these courses, like what would it look like, an online asynchronous course? Well, here's the link that they would use to tell students, what they're supposed to be practicing. And like Adam was saying, you know, that artifact, you can change it to say whatever it is. You know, an artifact to me is an assignment, or it's a practice exercise, anything that they know that they're going to be working on. So here, these people know that they're going to be working on something for a couple of times, once in week 11, another time, sorry, week 1, it should have been week 1, and then another time later on. So that's an example of an asynchronous. If you wanted an example of a mixed synchronous and asynchronous course, many of you prefer having your online courses like that. Here's an example that you can take a look at. So when they meet synchronously, what would they do? When they meet asynchronously, that they're producing, how do I assess them and know that they have learned? When they're asynchronous, like each of the asynchronous is something with a little bit of a mini quiz or an artifact that they know that in week 2, I'm starting to work on that artifact, but I'm also going to have a mini quiz so that they know where they're going with an asynchronous course. So as we said, feel free to download those and try them out. And then last but not least, we would like you to take a few minutes and just to answer a survey so that we know how to improve. No, you don't have to do that immediately, but if you can do it before you forget. And then we'd like to thank Leanne again and Genevieve. You know, sorry that she didn't make it. And then you have our webpage to go to, and the Salties webpage. It shows you where the course flow is. We're going to have some videos there to give you a hand. But in the meantime, we have, it's just a PDF document. So PDFs to remind you how to use it, you know, what those things mean. And for those people who want to explore further, they can be exploring what it does, you know, how to create an activity. If you want to create an activity, if you feel very confident, if you want to create, you know, if for the people like the educational counselors or advisors, you could maybe do a program. So building an activity, building a program, building a course, and then the overviews. And we're going to have more information there. And of course, the Salties has lots of ideas for activities. If you're looking for activities in any of your disciplines, you can check out what those activities look like. You go to your discipline and you've got, discipline here. And we've got ideas in all the disciplines. In language, for instance, for those of you in English, you can check out what those activities are. Everything's really slow today, but you can see what other people have done. And all of these are laid out in course flows. So let me just, here is someone who's done a really cool activity called Jeopardy, and she uses the Jeopardy format. And here is her, remember, this is not a course, this is an activity. So it's gonna look a little bit different than you've been looking at because we didn't try to show you too much today, but this is her workflow for her activity. If you say, you know what, I'm teaching English and this is exactly what I want, all you need to do is go here, go save project, it downloads. And now, going back to the question that Richard asked, I'm not going to mess up her thing, but I now have a copy of her. So here is my copy of her CourseFlow. I just go into CourseFlow and I go open project. I go to the downloads and actually it went onto my desktop. And on my desktop, I see poetic, literary, and lo and behold, I have a copy of Vanessa's, she's a Vanier teacher. I have a copy of her activity. I love it, but I'm gonna change the name because it's now Liz. And I'm gonna change this because I wanna make it my own. So I'm going to change all of these content, pieces. What is she telling me? But I love the way that she gives the students a chance to work together and to solve the problem. And then I love the way she has them discuss things. Those are the things I love about this. So I'm going to put my own content in. So that's how you can use the activities in the workflow. Okay, so there are questions, leaving, goodbyes.
Well,
I have one more question. So,
yeah.
So typically, do teachers lay out their whole course and then cut and paste and do a slow reveal to their students, or is that what they do?
That's what I would suggest. I think that unless you you can unless you had a very generic course, it's sort of like what you would do in Moodle, like a learning management system. Like, like how much reveal do you want? Like in some cases, I can imagine Adam, when he said that he wanted to have his students recognize that they'll be working on something throughout the semester. Maybe it's a good idea to show them, but I wouldn't put in maybe my lesson because I want them to show up, or I don't put in everything about my lesson. So it's up to you.
Yeah. So is there a feature where I don't have to build it up slowly, piece by piece, the second time? It'd be nice to just reveal what's already there.
Well, we're working on that. That's something that we know we would like to do. And so eventually, all of these wishes are things that we're putting into the next generation of CourseFlow.
Okay. And I think to tie to what Selena said, it would be nice to have a little, your real-time bar. So, hey, you're down here. You're in week 3, week 4, and the line starts dropping. So they see, oh my God, I'm halfway through. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay. Leanne?
Yes, no, I just want to thank Liz and Sue and Chow because this has been really informative. And I'm going to have some chats with my colleagues about how we can somehow merge this with, Liz, I sent you a copy of our course outline template because it has been a very standard linear approach and we've kind of been missing this piece to it. So I need to spend some thinking time on that. But I learned a lot. I can tell by the questions and the discussions that I'm really hoping to see some course flows in the college. Like Mark, you've done a great job already, and I can see that you're still working on yours. And I think it's sort of one of those things that you're never done. So sessions like this are absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Liz and Chow.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. And, at the end of that slide, there's the information to get in touch with us. We're here to answer your questions and to help work, and sometimes maybe put you in touch with others. We have a bunch of people in English. We don't have anybody in agriculture, but, we have, I'm sure we can find some people in biology. Mark, you're in electronics. We have people who may be in fields that are close enough to yours, to link you if you want to find someone to work with. And if not, you can work with us. Ready to learn about Richard's field. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone. Have a safe start to the new year and hopefully throughout the fall. Wow, it's going to be interesting.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Bye.
Good luck with your first class.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Liz,
Bye.
I think because you're the host, the recording is going to be saved on your hard drive.
Okay, unless do you want me to share it back to you?
No, actually, if you could just like save it and upload on the in the folder that we have.
But it's huge, though.
That's fine, because I was talking to Leanne before, and she thinks it's a good idea for us to upload this workshop on the Salties website.
Okay,
so she can circulate the link.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, perfect. We'll do that, Leanne. And thanks so much again for helping. And it was a great group.
Like, I'm not surprised to say that there's some real keen people in that group who.
Can you just stop recording, Liz?
Oh, sorry.
Because we're gonna talk about